Nobody changes their mind anymore. Have you noticed? We do not have conversations. We just take turns reciting whatever script we downloaded from a screen that morning. Ask a modern man to explain his worldview. He will hand you a barcode. A pre-packaged, algorithmically approved identity. And the terrifying part is that he actually believes he built it himself. He will scream at strangers on the internet to defend it. He will cut off his own family over it. But there is nothing inside him. Just static. It's the era of mass neurological collapse, heavily disguised as staying informed. We actually believe that because we laughed at the church and abandoned the saints, we somehow ascended to a higher plane of pure, uncontaminated logic. What an absolute joke. Look at us. A global population of heavily medicated, terrified atheists having collective panic attacks over the daily news cycle. We're terrified of the climate, terrified of the viruses, terrified of the wrong political party taking power, terrified of silence. We didn't kill dogma. No. We just replaced it with mass hysteria. You want to know if you're actually a free thinker? Try sitting in an empty room for 1 hour without reaching for a piece of glowing glass to numb your brain. The silence will crush you. The anxiety will eat you alive. Because the moment you stop consuming the noise, you have to face the void you created by killing God. Critical thinking is dead. We murdered it. What you're watching on the news every night is just the autopsy. Our ability to think was suffocated slowly by a plague so normalized, so deeply embedded in our daily routine, we fail to recognize it as a disease. Consumerism. Consumerism is an entire cosmological worldview. It is the reduction of the human soul to a data point. The modern system views you as a battery, a biological engine designed to convert dopamine into revenue and anxiety into engagement. Hollow out a human being. Tell them nothing exists beyond the material world. Tell them they are just a cosmic accident of meat and chemistry. A void opens up inside them. A terrifying existential black hole. But the market is always there, waiting at the edge of that void, selling you something to fill it. We consume identities. Buy the right clothes. Post the right hashtags. Consume the right media to construct a Frankenstein version of your personality. The shopping mall and the digital feed replaced the Paris. We scroll endlessly. We hope the next purchase, the next video, the next digital hit of validation will finally numb the existential dread. It won't. It never does. Because consumerism thrives on dissatisfaction. If you were ever truly at peace, the entire economic model of the modern world would collapse. Your anxiety is highly profitable for them. Your inability to sit in silence is the foundation of a $1 trillion industry. The slow cancellation of our future is masked by an endless stream of cheap, immediate pleasures. When your entire existence is reduced to consuming, critical thinking dies first. A consumer doesn't question the underlying reality of the system. They only ask which product on the shelf will make them feel better for the next 5 minutes. We are a culture of addicts, begging our dealers for the poison killing our minds. The root of the disease of consumerism goes much deeper. It is the philosophical plague of our era, nihilism. Humanity killed the old gods, abandoned the dogmas, and declared themselves free from tradition, proudly marching into an era of extreme rational atheism. But human beings are inherently religious creatures. You cannot turn off the worship instinct. If you do not worship God, you inevitably worship yourself, the state, the algorithm, or the digital mob. Nobody mapped this mechanic better than Father Seraphim Rose. If you haven't seen the 3 video essays I did on his life, go watch them. Father Seraphim saw the trajectory of the 20th century and recognized the terrifying truth. Nihilism, the belief in nothing, is a highly aggressive state. The void is hungry. In his diagnosis of the modern world, Father Seraphim wrote, "Nihilism is not a mere lack of belief. It is a destructive force. The active nihilist is driven by hatred of the truth. It begins with liberalism, watering down absolute truth into mere preference. It decays into realism, where only the material scientific world matters. It devolves into vitalism, worshipping energy, movement, and raw emotion because we are so desperately numb. Finally, it reaches its ultimate conclusion, the nihilism of destruction, the pure desire to tear down everything representing order, beauty, and truth simply because its existence insults the void inside us. When a society abandons the truth, it actively seeks to destroy everything reminding it of that truth. Extreme atheism produced desperation. Without heaven to look forward to, people demand a utopia on earth. When that utopia fails to materialize, as it inevitably must, they descend into mass hysteria. For example, look at the fanaticism surrounding politics, social issues, health crisis. People latch onto any passing panic with the zealotry of religious fundamentalists. Why? Because when you stand for nothing, you are desperate for a master. You surrender your critical thinking to anyone offering a sense of collective purpose, even if that purpose is just hating the designated enemy of the day. We traded the gospel for the daily news cycle. The result is a world completely disconnected from reality. St. Justin Popovich, the great Serbian theologian of the 20th century, saw this exact psychological collapse emerging from the Enlightenment. Humanism is a tragic building of the world without God. The greatest tragedy of the humanistic man consists in his gradual and systematic strangulation of his own soul. Man without God is a 70-year-old walking corpse. What happens to the mind severed from the divine? How do we fix a brain programmed to self-destruct? Turn to the desert. Turn to men who master the mind by waging total, uncompromising war against their own passions. Saint Paisios the Athonite diagnosed our neurological collapse perfectly. Secular logic is a sickness. In our time, knowledge has increased, but logic has been lost. When we try to examine spiritual matters with secular logic, we remain in the dark. In the Orthodox understanding, human beings possess the Nous, often translated as the eye of the soul, or the spiritual intellect. The rational brain is a tool, biological calculator designed to navigate the physical world. The Nous is the organ that actually perceives the truth. It is the spiritual radar connecting us to God. The modern world completely blinded the Nous. Rejecting the spiritual realm forces us to rely entirely on the meat grinder of secular logic. Logic without grace is a prison. Saint Paisios noted that trying to solve spiritual or existential problems using only secular logic destroys your peace. You spin in circles. You end up in a state of constant unbearable overanalysis. This is exactly why our society is plagued by mental illness. We try to process the infinite, terrifying weight of human existence using a broken biological calculator while our spiritual intellect rots. St. Theo van der Reclus warned of this exact intellectual fragmentation over a century ago. The mind of a modern man is like a chaotic marketplace, where thoughts swarm like frantic buyers and sellers, leaving no room for the silence of God. True knowledge is not the accumulation of facts, but the purification of the heart. True critical thinking is the purification of the Nous, clearing the debris, the noise, the filth of the world out of your soul, so you can actually see reality as it is, not as the algorithm presents it. When the Nous is clouded by passions, pride, and the endless bombardment of digital noise, you are actually blind. You cannot think critically because you cannot see clearly. Some realize the cave is a trap. They see the mass hysteria. They reach back into history for a lifeline. They turn to secular existentialism, pop-stoicism. 3-hour podcasts about optimizing the mindset. They decide the universe is random, meaningless chaos, but they will be the heroic masters of their own destiny, untouchable fortresses of pure logic. And this is the ultimate trap. Modern secular Stoicism has nothing to do with its glorious past. It is just nihilism wearing a tailored suit. You cannot conquer the ego using the ego. Logic your way out of the void without God, and you're just rearranging the furniture in your prison cell. You tell yourself you're independent. You tell yourself you're a critical thinker. But you're still worshipping at the altar of the self. Saint Ignatius Brianchaninov addressed this directly. The world is in a state of delusion, and whoever yields to its influence partakes of its delusion. He who relies on his own intellect and his own strength falls inevitably into the hands of his enemies. Modern-day Stoicism teaches you to suppress emotions to increase productivity. It teaches you resilience so you can conquer a material world that is going to burn anyway. It ignores the disease and treats the symptoms. Philosophy, perfected by the Christian fathers, was never about optimizing your workflow. Orthodox philosophy is the preparation of death. Try facing the crushing weight of existential dread armed with nothing but self-reliance. You will break. The human mind was not designed to carry the weight of being its own god. It buckles. And when it buckles, a hysteria rushes back in, tenfold. The system is too loud, too fast, too well engineered. Fight the mass hysteria on its own terms, arguing in comment sections, doom scrolling to stay informed, engaging in the endless tribal warfare of the digital age, and you lose. The hysteria infects you. You become the monster you fight. The only way out is out enduring it. That requires violence. Brutal, unapologetic violence against the self. Asceticism. Our beloved Saint Porphyrios of Kafsokalivia understood the exact mechanism of our modern psychological torture. He saw that fighting the noise of the world directly is a trap. The devil thrives in chaos. When you fight bad thoughts, when you fight the anxieties of the modern world head-on, you give them power. You feed them your attention. Here is his instruction. Do not fight the bad thoughts. Despise them. When you fight them, you give them power. Do not converse with the devil. Turn your mind away and run to Christ. Obsess over the world's decay. Fixate on the madness of politicians, the media, the masses. You let the darkness control your mind. You let the devil set the terms of engagement. By trying to stay informed on every worldly panic, you are conversing with the chaos. Turn away entirely. St. John Chrysostom, our great church father, preaching centuries ago, understood the necessity of guarding the senses against the garbage of the world. The soul is a city, and its gates are the senses. If the gates are left unguarded, the enemy will enter and sack the city. Asceticism in the 21st century requires fasting from dopamine, fasting from the screen, establishing ruthless control over what enters your eyes and your ears. Guard the gates of the city. Sit in silence. The modern withdrawal symptoms will hit. Your brain, addicted to chaos, will scream for distraction. It will demand a hit of outrage, a hit of validation, a hit of cheap entertainment. Let it scream. Stand firm in the silence. The most radical, countercultural act you can commit in the era of mass hysteria is to refuse to panic. Turn off the screen, step into the quiet, and face your creator. Reclaim sovereignty over your own mind. In that terrifying silence, the Nous begins to heal. In that quiet, true critical thinking is resurrected. The world wants you distracted. A predictable consuming data point reacting endlessly to shadows on the wall of the cave. Do not give them what they want.